What does self-care mean to you? Is it something that you practice on a regular basis, or is it just some broad uh, term that doesn't mean anything to you? Hi, my name is Mitra Kodel, and I'm a French psychologist and a health and wellness coach who helps busy women to lose weight without dieting or hustling hours at the gym. So today I want to take advantage of the holiday season and the fact that it is a fun time, but it can be very tiring too, and to remind everybody that it could be helpful to recharge our batteries and to take time for ourselves. So I just want to share with you a little bit about self-care and how I see it, how I practice it, and how it can be different from France to the US. So, just first a fun fact. I really try to translate self-care in French, and I can literally translate it, but it just doesn't sound good or correct in French. And when I did this exercise, I wondered why we don't have a real translation for self-care in French. And in my opinion, it's because self-care is not a thing in France. What I mean is it's part of the everyday life of women, especially women. And maybe we tend to more take care of ourselves on a regular daily basis, or maybe we feel a little less guilty of doing so as a mom, as a spouse, and so this is something we practice more often, and maybe more simple in a way that is simpler and without any ceremonial things around it. So I want to share a couple of ideas about self-care, which is such a big concept in the US, here in the US, and some people like it, and some think that it is very a broad term that doesn't mean anything, and it's filled with a lot of different things. And somehow I think I agree. I think it's true that it has become something very big, and it doesn't mean anything anymore. I have a couple of ideas about self-care, and one of them is that it doesn't need to, it's different for everybody, right? I can't really give you some tips about what is self-care for you, because it depends on you. What is self-care for me, or something that recharges my batteries, may be different for you. And I know that the first thing people think about when they talk about self-care is bubble bath, and as I will tell you, this is not at all self-care for me. This is not something I appreciate. So it's really different for everyone, and it is not something cliche. It depends on who you are, what you appreciate, what you lack of in your life, what you need right now. This is something different to everybody. The second idea, second thing that is important, I think, about self-care is it's that it doesn't need to be something long. Some of my favorite self-care routines take as small as 10 minutes, and this is good, and really I feel recharged after this. It doesn't mean that I don't like longer things like a session of massage, which I do sometimes, but really it likes, I don't know, it can happen 2 or 3 times a year. It's not something I do on a very regular basis, and I really appreciate those. or it can be a mani and pedi. But I mean, it can also be just 10 minutes. And in fact, the shorter it is, the better, in my opinion, because it's better to take many breaks or taking care of ourselves several times a week, rather than doing this one afternoon every quarter. I think this is something we have to practice really on a regular basis. So this is the second point that I think it's important. And for me, I also want to share with you some of my favorite self-care routines and some things that I don't consider as self-care. What I like, something that I really appreciate, for example, is taking a coffee break with my husband 3 or 4 times a week. We bought a Nespresso machine when COVID started, because I used to go to Starbucks quite regularly, and it wasn't possible anymore, right? We were on lockdown and quarantine, and everything was shut down, so it wasn't possible anymore. So we decided to invest in an espresso machine, and 3 or 4 times a week we take a break. He takes an espresso and I take a cappuccino with cinnamon on it, a lot of cinnamon. And we sit down and we take this coffee break together, and we don't talk about children, we don't talk about our to-do list, we don't talk about chores. We just talk sometimes about our next family vacation, sometimes about how we feel right at that moment, not only as a couple, but individually, like 2 individuals, and sometimes about how we picture ourselves in 5 or 10 years. So this is, it can also be, self-care can also be with somebody else, and this is what I really like to practice. Another thing that is means a lot to me is a weekly meetup I have with a friend, and sometimes we go to a park or we go to Starbucks. So this also means a lot to me. This is something that I consider as a self-care routine. This is something I practice every week, and it means it helps me to recharge my batteries. One of my very favorite self-care routines are taking some time just in silence, maybe because I'm an introvert, being all the time surrounded with my family, which I completely, I love this. I'm a mom of 4 children. Nobody's forced me to have 4 children. We really wanted our kids, and I really enjoy being with them. But sometimes I really need to be by myself, silent, or listening to some music, but really resting. And this is something, it's not resting, I don't sleep, I just rest my mind, because when they are with me, especially my little ones, they are all the time babbling, and and sometimes they cut the speech to each other. They're all at the same time talking, and it can be it's really fun, but sometimes it's tiring. And so being in a silent or listening to some music is something I really enjoy. There are many other things that I do on a regular basis, or at least I do whenever I feel a need for it. And but I also want to share with you what I don't consider as a self-care routine. One of them, as I said, is bubble bath. I really don't enjoy taking a bath. I always take a shower, and so I get bored very quickly. So this is not something I consider as a self-care routine, and this is not something I appreciate. Another thing that I don't consider as a self-care routine is reading, and that's why I say that is because I read really a lot on a regular basis. I read every single day, either on electronics, on screens, or paper books. I actually prefer paper books, but I read to educate myself. I read to be informed. I read also because I enjoy reading books, novels, and this is something I do for example, every night before sleeping. I read a little bit of a novel, and this is something that helps me to sleep. So I don't consider this as a self-care routine. It is just part of my life. So a self-care routine it can take very different forms. It depends on you, and it depends on when and where you are in your life, right? As I said, something I used to enjoy, I don't enjoy it anymore. And it's really something very personal, but I think the important thing is to make it as simple as possible and as regular as possible. Do it whenever you can. Make it short to be able to do it, to repeat it as much as possible, and but just do it. Taking care of ourselves is important, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of others anymore, or as well as we would like to. One last thought before we wrap up, and this. I think that self-care isn't a one-size-fits-all thing that can fix everything. If you are suffering from a mental health issue, or you know somebody who suffers from a mental health issue, you know that self-care is not the answer and won't heal you or heal this person. And if, for example, you are suffering from anxiety or depression or other mental health issues, you need to seek help from a professional, and self-care is not helpful. It won't hurt, but it's not the answer. So, and probably that's why people think that some people think that self-care has been overrated. It's because it's in some way, and for some people, it has become the answer to everything, and it's supposed to fix everything that goes wrong in your life, which is obviously not the case. If you like this video, please like or share, and I would love to have your thoughts about this. Do you think that self-care is something that is important, or do you think that this is a very broad, loaded term that doesn't mean anything, and especially does it mean something to you? Leave me a comment or send me an email. I would love to hear about you. You can send me an email if you want it to be more personal. Yeah, I will leave the link, the address below this video. Take care of yourself, and see you next time.